and welcome to the first instalment in a new video series launched by TRBusiness earlier this year called Travel Retail Question Time, where you, the viewers, are in control of asking the questions. Our intrepid interviewee is Ramesh Cidambi, COO of Dubai Duty Free. Thank you, Ramesh, for joining us in this new venture, obviously sponsored by Nestlé International Travel Retail. Now let's get down to it. The following questions were originally submitted by members of the duty-free and travel retail industry, as you know, and then we gave the industry the chance to vote for their 5 most popular questions, and these are the questions that we'll be asking you today. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Let's begin. The travel retail industry is losing its USP as brands do not invest enough to differentiate the TR product range from its domestic ones. At the same time, the airports are squeezing a lot from both retailers and brands, which makes it harder for brands to justify the investment. How can the industry be transformed to meet the future challenges and needs of new generations of travellers who are no longer interested to shop at the airports?
That's a great question, Charlotte, and it points to the fact that this series is a fantastic idea, and it's a great idea for you and travel retail business to ask the people in the industry what questions to ask someone like me. And I'm really pleased that Nestlé sponsored it and Stuart Dryburgh was sort of worked with you in terms of putting this together. I would sort of think a little bit about the premise of the question. Mm-hmm. The premise of the question is that the current situation within the travel retail industry is more the responsibility of the brands, and or the brands investing or not investing. And in my mind, I really think that the situation that the travel retail industry is in presently puts the retailer right at the heart of the predicament that the industry is in, and at the heart of the questions or the aspects that challenge the future success of the industry. Mm-hmm. Because in one respect, what the questioner is essentially asking is, how do you protect the success of the industry going forward, in relation to the challenges that are there now, whether it is with new generation of travelers or the questioner's opinion that they are not shopping or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, I think it is useful to just sort of step back for a moment and to think about what is the context that we are addressing this particular issue in. Mm-hmm. And the context that we are addressing this issue in is a situation where there is a strong demand from airports to build infrastructure and to develop infrastructure, because the passenger demand is continuing to grow year after year, and both ACI and IATA expect single-digit growth up until 2035 or 2040. So you have a situation where you need to invest money in airport infrastructure, so which then puts pressure on the airports to develop their aeronautical and non-aeronautical revenue. And in most regions, especially in the Middle East and in the Asia Pacific, there has been little opportunity to raise aeronautical revenue because of the competitive nature of the landscape there, which then put pressure on the non-aeronautical revenue. And the airports have successfully transferred that pressure onto the retailers to generate more and more money. And the retailers have then worked with the brands. And between the brands and the retailers, they have put themselves in a position where both are financially stretched in terms of margins and in terms of returns, which can be then reinvested into the airport sector or the aviation sector. So you have a situation now where financially all the 3 parts of the equation are challenged. And within that context, you have a further sort of problem in that the pressures on the retail side of the business are continuing to grow from actors who are not part of the travel retail industry, and principally from the online players and from the and to also to a large extent on the domestic sector or the domestic retailers. So in general, you have a situation where the retail industry is under pressure, whether you're talking about domestic retail or travel retail, and the industry is under pressure from online players. And the financial model within the travel retail industry in particular is stretched. And within the context of that, all of us are thinking, how do we position the industry to continue the success in the future? So we have had a fantastic run since 1947 and since the start of the travel retail industry. But I would say at this point in time that we are probably at one of the most interesting times in terms of the industry itself. And the challenges are not restricted to the players. So I would say that if you simply got the brands, the retailers, and the airport together in a room, you won't be able to solve the future challenges which are there, because the threats to our industry are more from outside the industry rather than from inside the industry. So the first part of my answer really is to challenge the premise of the question, that it is not really just to do with brands or brands not investing in the travel retail sector, within the portfolio that we have. In my view, if I simply talk to the people in the brands who look after the travel retail sector within their companies, they're very committed, they are making the investment, and they are ensuring that they themselves remain relevant and valid within their organizations as one separate entity, in addition to all the other entities that are there, in terms of the brand's coverage and in terms of geography. So I don't think the problem has to do with that. So then it comes down to a situation where within this environment where you are stretched in a financial sense, how are you going to make the transition to the next level of retailing, where your online actors and the online players, both pure e-commerce players and the brands who have a strong digital presence, how are you as a retailer going to compete with them? Because the pure e-commerce players know their customers better than us, and that is something that we have to accept. They have a fantastic amount of data, information, knowledge, insight on the customers. They have a fantastic assortment in terms of product lines, and they are able to provide a very convenient service to the customers who are shopping on their sites. And the degree of investment that they are making in terms of technology, in terms of logistics, in terms of fulfillment, is far greater than what most travel retailers can do. And at the same time, within the travel retail industry, you have greater and greater consolidation amongst the suppliers, and you have individual, let's say, supplier houses becoming more and more powerful, which also then puts more pressure on the independent retailers like us, who have a single location. And even though we are the biggest entity, we are the biggest airport retailer in a single location, just in terms of size, you have a situation where you are dealing with entities who are getting bigger and bigger than you. And we have the additional problem, a company like Dubai Duty Free, where other airport retailers have also grown in terms of size, and the biggest retailer, for example, in the travel retail industry is 4 times our size, through a combination of organic growth and acquisition. So it is a challenging situation overall, and not helped by the fact that you have players from outside who are questioning your basic model, and they're questioning the ability of us as travel retailers to meet the demands of the customer. Now, against that, we have a fantastic gift of having passengers go through our shops every day. And in Dubai airport, for example, we'll have 90 million passengers go through the shop. So the challenge for us really is to see how we can communicate better with these passengers, how we can interact better with them, and continue to do the standard retailing aspects well, which is to have very good customer service on the shop floor, to have attractive areas in terms of shopping, to be convenient in terms of transactions, and to reduce the friction in the transactions as much as possible, and to work with the airports to make the overall passenger journey as comfortable as possible, so that the passengers are in a good frame of mind when they shop. So we have the advantage that people have the propensity to shop when they're traveling, we have the advantage that millions and millions of people will go through our shops, but it's up to us to get the basic elements of retailing right in order to be able to capitalize on the traffic that we have, to increase the penetration with the passengers that are going through, and to learn from what the online commerce players have done well, and to try and compete against them. So we cannot just roll over and allow the online retailers to dominate the landscape. But at the same time, we have to be realistic in terms of what they have achieved in terms of customer insight, what they have achieved in terms of customer convenience, what they have achieved in terms of assortment, and the relentless pressure that they are putting on margins to bring it down. Not helped by the fact that even within the brands, we find that the brands are the brands that are in categories where you have strong domestic competition in certain categories, they are increasingly finding themselves in a situation where the pricing in the travel retail market is not as attractive as the domestic retail. And in the categories where you have, let's say, in categories like fashion, where you have constraints in terms of availability of product, that the brands are increasingly pushing to minimize any differences between the domestic market and between the travel retail market, which further then erodes the exclusivity and the unique selling proposition of the travel retail market. And lastly, governments have also obviously taken various steps in the past to erode the uniqueness and the competitiveness of the travel retail market. And the latest difficulties that we're having with cigarettes, for example, and the digital tax stamp in the Middle East is one more example where the erosion is happening between what is a unique selling proposition for the travel retail market. So I think in an overall sense, we as an industry have to accept that these things have happened. We have to accept that you have competition from non-traditional sources, and you have to evolve your business, especially on the digital side, to be able to better compete with the forces that are in play at the moment.
You mentioned communication there on more than one occasion. I think perhaps the question it's fairly negative in its outlook, and it's saying in a statement that that new generations of travellers are no longer interested in shopping at the airports, which I feel is a little harsh, because I believe they still are shopping at the airports. But perhaps, and also I feel the criticism of the brands themselves not actually providing differentiation in terms of exclusives, I think is also a little unfair, because I think a lot of brands, as you mentioned, actually do have that differentiation. I think perhaps, as you say, the communication it needs to be perhaps better in that respect, in terms of we do have an awful lot of products in the airport that are different to the domestic market and online, but perhaps you don't know they're here. Is that a fair criticism?
I think yes and no. I think it's a fair criticism in terms of communication. But I think in my mind, the whole issue of airport exclusives or products specifically for the airport is probably overstated. The fact is that consumers prefer strong brands, and consumers will purchase strong brands if they are available in an airport or if they are available in a domestic market. So it's not really a sustainable model to create a whole bunch of products or many lines of SKUs that are very particular to the travel retail industry. So I would say the bigger weakness, for the retailers, and the blame in this particular case is more with the retailers than with the brands. The bigger weakness for the retailers has been in communicating the proposition to the customers and having the one-to-one communication with the customers. So in the question, for example, the person asking the question is saying that the new generation of travelers is no longer shopping. That it is not so much the case that the new generation of travelers is no longer shopping, but it is more of a case that if you don't communicate with the new generation of travelers and don't distract him from his smartphone, for example, and get him to look away from the screen, yes, of course, he is not going to shop. So the issue is a communication issue rather than thinking about it as a demographic that is not shopping. We do $2 billion worth of transactions, a year. And I can absolutely assure you that we have the whole sort of, range, whether it is, millennials or, parents of millennials or, the whole range of people who are shopping. But our continued ability to do it has more to do with communication rather than with a particular demographic. And I think continued erosion of the unique selling proposition of travel retail for the reasons that I described earlier, which will result in people not shopping, rather than to do with any particular segment of the population that we are dealing with.
On to our next question. What makes Dubai Duty Free unique and different from other duty-free operators around the world? Or perhaps it might be better phrased, what is Dubai Duty Free doing in 2019 which sets it apart from its competitors in the Middle East and beyond?
I think the first thing I would say, Charlotte, is that it would be a bit presumptuous for us to say that we're either unique or different, from other travel retailers. We aim to provide a first-class service to passengers, and we would like to promote Dubai Airport and Dubai Duty Free, which is the core mission in terms of Dubai Duty Free. And one of the things that Mr. McLaughlin, our Executive Vice Chairman and CEO, has emphasized literally from day one, and it relates to the question that is being asked, is that we always want passengers to feel that they are in Dubai Duty Free. So if I were to pick one element in terms of what is unique about us, is that we try our best to give you the feeling that you're shopping at Dubai Duty Free, and that you're not shopping in a random collection of brand outlets or different shops which don't have a particular unifying theme around them. So we want passengers to feel that they're at Dubai Duty Free, and we want them to enjoy the experience of being at Dubai Duty Free. And at the same time, we do our best to allow brands to express themselves in the way that they feel is best, both to enhance the experience of the customer and to hopefully also increase the revenue for Dubai Duty Free and for the brands. So in 2019, and to come back to the question, what we would continue to do is to continue to develop and continue to strengthen the Dubai Duty Free brand. And at the same time, in certain areas such as fashion, for example, we are renovating our fashion offer, especially in Concourse B. We are opening a new Chanel boutique in the summer of this year. We opened a new Gucci boutique towards the end of last year. And we'll continue to do the development within Concourse B, which is 33% of our business. And it also happens to be a concourse that is now just over 10 years old. So we're doing a complete renovation of a Food Plus offer there on both the eastern and west sides. And we have done a considerable amount of renovation in other bits of the concourse last year. In a general sense, in 2019, what we would do is continue to look at the retail offer, continue to renovate, refurbish as we feel fit. Like, for example, last year, we opened 25 new shops, of different sizes, but we did 25 new shop openings, so we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to focus on our team, and as I had said in the earlier question, customer service and the experience that the passengers have when they interact with our staff remains extremely important. So we'll continue to emphasize on the customer service portion in terms of training, in terms of development of our staff. And we'll continue to emphasize the work that we're doing on the digital side and in terms of communication with the customers and doing the marketing related stuff. In addition to the overall brand building that we do in marketing, through our Dubai Duty Free Tennis Championships, through the Dubai Duty Free Irish Open, through the Dubai Duty Free Irish Derby at the Cara, and the various events that we are involved in. So we would continue to focus on those areas while we continue to work on our messaging to the customer. So I think in the case of 2019, it will be a year of trying to do the things that we have been doing before better, and using that to maintain growth in an environment that is going to be quite challenging, because we have had the runway closure this year, we are having the runway closure, we expect the passenger numbers to drop. The currency situation continues to be tough, so we need to push and do the simple things properly in 2019 to try and get the best outcome possible when the year finishes.
So to sort of sum up, I guess it's in a way more of the same,
Yeah.
but better.
Yeah.
And also conveying that sense of place
Yeah.
at the airport so people know that they are shopping
Yeah.
at Dubai Duty Free, but also giving them those brands that they really, really
Yeah.
want, introducing more, interesting to hear
Yeah.
more about the fashion and those really
Yeah.
big international brands that those customers want.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.